Well, joining us now, he is, of course, the new head basketball coach at the University of Maryland. He's Coach Kevin Willard. Coach, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Did anybody end up taking you up on your offer to go get a beer last night?
Unfortunately, I had my two kids with me, and I had to get them back for school this morning. I'm heading actually on my way back down to Maryland right now. So unfortunately, I couldn't have a beer with anyone, but I'm looking forward to it tonight.
That'll be a great opportunity to get to know some folks around these parts. Coach, so much I want to talk to you about. I was just wondering if I could start. We're of course in Baltimore, and when I was thinking about maybe your ties to the area, Akil Carr's name came to mind, and he was such an icon. And I know you've never actually got the chance to coach him, but can you take me back and tell me about what it was, maybe the first time you ever saw him and why you were like, man, I know he's short, but I give this kid a chance to play in the Big East.
Yeah, the Crime Stopper. Akil was, I first watched him when he was a junior in a packed high school gym, and, I was just mesmerized with, what he could do with the basketball and what he could do and how he had so much finesse and he had so much, he had so much confidence and, he just got, I just loved the way he played. And, at the time when I was at Seton Hall, I was looking for someone to energize and be someone to come in that people wanted to watch. And I had an assistant in Chris Pompey that was from Baltimore and Baltimore in the D.C. area. And, he got me down there and, I just loved the way Akil played.
Well, unfortunately, it didn't get the opportunity, but no, you're right. He was a phenomenal player to watch. With that in mind, Baltimore kids, right? Juju Reese, of course. I was checking out. I know his mom a little bit, Angel, and she mentioned that you might have a little bit of a family connection with Juju and his aunt being at Pitt at the same time that you were and playing on the women's team. And she mentioned that you had actually recruited him to try to get him to Seton Hall. Can you take me through your relationship with the Reeses and the importance of trying to make sure that he sticks around at Maryland and maybe whether or not you have a little bit of confidence because of the relationship you have with them?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what's been interesting is, and I'm a big fan of Julian's and the way he plays and what a great young player he is. And I mean, if you just look at the family and the tradition that the family has, it's a wonderful family. And you look at what his sister's doing on the women's team. It's kind of mind blowing how good of an athletic family and just how good of people they are. I think it's what's kind of interesting is that I know a lot of kids on the roster. I either tried to recruit them because being in this area or played against them. I've played against a couple guys on the roster, so I'm very familiar with the kids on the roster. They're all terrific young men. It's Sutton Turge, I think, really did a great job of recruiting not only good players but terrific young men. And I'm looking forward to kind of getting and working with all of them.
No doubt. Obviously, there's a Baltimore thing around here that we're a little selfish when it comes to Baltimore kids on the roster, Coach. We like all of them. I promise you that. But it's just there's something a little bit different for us when there's a successful Baltimore kid.
I definitely get it.
Coach, you of course, speaking of families, you come from a basketball family yourself. I was wondering if you could share with me the best thing you ever learned from your dad and all the years that you were around him as a father, as a coach, as a mentor. Is there one thing that you do on a day-to-day basis and you're like, oh, God, I know, that's the only reason I do it is because of Dad?
Oh, geez. We could be here forever. No, I think the biggest thing that I've learned from my father, and it was because I played for him. I was very lucky to play for my father. My father was very unlucky for me to play for him. I got to see firsthand how he balanced running a high-level program and being a father. People always say, what's the hardest part of your job? And I always say being a father, because this job demands so much of you, but you cannot forget about raising your kids or being a good husband. And I think my father was he was a phenomenal coach. He ran great programs, but he was a phenomenal dad. He never stopped being a father. He never stopped being there. And every day I wake up, the first thing I say is, I always say to myself, let's go out, work everybody. Then all of a sudden, before I walk out the door, is, you have to be a father. And that's something that I think about every day, and it's something that he taught me, and I learned from him, and it's something that's just ingrained in me, and I make sure that I'm being a great husband, a great father, and I'm running a high-level program.
We saw your two boys at the press conference. Do you see in them like interest? Do you see in them like, oh no, they definitely want to follow in their dad's and their grandfather's footsteps? Do you try to dissuade them from that? Like,
no. They will have nothing to do with this business. They are both way smarter than I ever could dream of being. They both actually love playing baseball, which is great for me because I can sit in the outfield and watch them.
It's cool.
The only bad thing about baseball, it's just not timed. I wish I would have done a better job of getting them into a timed sport.
You spend all of a sudden you look down your watch. We've been here for 3 hours.
I've been there for 3 hours, and I made 800 recruiting calls, and we're only in the top of the third inning.
Oh man!
But they absolutely love baseball, and I think they're really excited. It's really hard on your family when you move, especially when we've been at such a special place like Seton Hall for so long. But they're excited about being part of the Terp family.
He is Coach Kevin Willard. He's with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Coach, you brought up Mark Turgeon, and he won an awful lot while he was here at Maryland, but was never fully embraced by this fan base because of the lack of postseason success over the years. And there were some pundits who had said, hey, that might dissuade coaches from considering the Maryland job. Was that something that you thought about at all, or did you sort of say, hey, no, that's my expectation for the program. I'm embracing those things. I'm here to go win big-time championship caliber basketball.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm good friends with Mark. I think Mark did a phenomenal job here. Again, consistency is not, for some reason in America today, being consistent is not a good value, which I don't know why that happened or how that happened in this country. But, Mark was very consistent. His teams played very hard and won a lot of games. For me, when I looked at, what was going on and how all this went down this is the University of Maryland. This is a big-time job. I really believe a top 10 job. If you look at the tradition, you look at the great players that have come through this program, NBA players, great college players, and then you look at the coaches. Lefty obviously started this, but then you look at what Coach Williams was able to do and how he put this university on a level that's very hard to do at any school. When you look at the consistency of what the coaches have done, what the great players that have played here, that's a place that you want to be, and that's some place that is obviously a great job.
I bring that up, and I'm sure I'm going to be the first person to ever mention your 1-5 record in the NCAA tournament, Coach. I'm sure. I duck as I say that, right? Do you believe that being at a place like Maryland, given the resources here, that level of success and that expectation level that we're talking about from this fan base, that it is attainable at a place like Maryland because of the resources that you have for basketball?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it's as you get into the NCAA tournament, one of the things that we had a hard time at Seton Hall. Once we got into the NCAA tournament, we became we were consistently being in the NCAA tournament. But one of my issues was, we had to build I didn't do a good enough job building a roster that when we got into the NCAA tournament, that we could be ready to play in it. And I think it's something that, obviously my 2020 team, who won the Big East championship,
right,
would have been a 2 seed. I think two things you have to have, and I look at all the teams in the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16 right now, you have to have a guy that can get you a bucket getter, and you have to have a roster that can sustain 20 league games, 3 more tough physical games in your rival games, because that is more than anything is, I look at Purdue. Purdue has 2 big guys that can get them a bucket at any time, and then they play 8 guys solid minutes. And then I look at Michigan. Michigan has a guy that can get them a bucket at any time. Hunter Dickerson, you just throw it down there, he's getting you a bucket. And then they have a roster that's, they play 7, 8 more guys that are balanced out. And I think that's something that, the 2 years I had bucket getters, unfortunately the year in 16 we got sent out west.
Denver,
as a 6 seed, when we probably should have been a 4 seed. And then the year the tournament got canceled, we had an unbelievable bucket getter, and we were unbelievably deep. And as I've kind of gone through the NCAA tournament, and this year we kind of just limped in. We just we lost our point guard halfway through, and then we lost our power forward right before the tournament. Was you have to be fresh going into the NCAA tournament. And I look at all the teams that are really striving. Providence with Ed Cooley and Villanova, the two Big Ten teams. Those are teams that are deep, but they also have guys that can get them a bucket at any time. And I think the biggest thing as a coach is you have to learn from your failures. And what I've learned over the last 3 or 4 years is the fact that you got to have someone that can get you a bucket at the end of the game, because you're going to get it's hard to score in the NCAA tournament. You're going to play against a very good coach, a very good defensive team. Make sure you have a guy that you can give the ball to at some point that can get you a bucket.
That's interesting. I really appreciate the perspective, Coach. It's a really honest answer about that, and I greatly appreciate that. Coach
Glenn, unfortunately, you're only going to get an honest answer.
I have heard that about you. I have heard that you are the type. Coach Kevin Willard with us here on GCR. If I could follow up on that, there was something that really fascinated me, speaking of honest answers, that you brought up last night, was the idea that you mold your style around the players that you have. For the nerdy fans that really want to dive in and dive deep on Kevin Willard, is there an example you could give us of maybe like one team that you ran a certain style with certain players, and another team that you ran a certain style with that was a little bit different because of the players that you have, to allow the nerds in the audience to sort of dive in on what to expect from Kevin Willard?
Yeah, defensively, we've always been one of the better teams in the country.
Yeah.
I just think I think you have to embrace where you are. And Seton Hall is just outside New York City. I look at Maryland; it's just outside D.C., outside Baltimore. It's my personality. I think it's always why they've always been great defensive teams. But offensively, I've evolved in this business where I'll give you my 2016 team. I had a sophomore point guard in Isaiah Whitehead, who was really turned himself into an unbelievable point guard as the season went on. And what I did is I evolved my offense to give him the best opportunities to not only score, but I gave him opportunities to create offense for the other 4 sophomores that we started. We started 5 sophomores that year. And ended up winning the Big East tournament. And, again, I thought we got a little bit of a bad seed in the NCAA tournament getting sent out west. But, I took that team and I really gave the ball to Isaiah, ended up being the MVP of the Big East tournament. And, we were very pick-and-roll heavy. Extremely pick-and-roll heavy. We ran more pick-and-rolls probably than any other team in the country at that time. Well, the next year, Isaiah went pro, got drafted by the Nets, and I had a 6'8" center that was an absolute beast, in Angel Delgado. And so,
and we remember.
Yes, and he had to get the ball. And so, for us to be successful, we had to work much more inside to out. And so I couldn't be as pick-and-roll heavy. And so I took all the things that we were running the year before, and I had to get rid of them. And then we went to a much more post offense, inside out, and a much more ISO offense, because I had a young small forward that was really good, Desi Rodriguez, a lefty, tough, hard-nosed kid, and then Kadeem Carrington, who was my point guard, who was more of a scoring guard. So we went to a much more of an isolation offense, post offense, and so that we went from playing pretty fast tempo with Isaiah to a much slower tempo with throwing the ball into Angel, because I had to make sure Angel got the ball. And I think it's just something that I've learned, that you have to adapt your style. It gives your best players a chance to be successful. Angel Delgado ended up being the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Award winner for the best center in the country. And I think it's something that I've learned from other coaches, that, you're going to get good players if your best players are getting high awards.
Coach, I know I'm going to need to let you go, because you got 1,000 of these that you're doing today. If I could knock out 2 quickly with you. One, timing-wise, in the past, we used to say things like, hey, it might take 3 to 4 years for a coach to really get going, because you got to bring your players in, and it's going to take a little while with recruiting. Has the transfer portal changed that? We see what, is happening at Iowa State. And I'm not trying to put a Sweet 16 or bust type of scenario on next year, but has it sped up the process a little bit more? Can it be done a bit more quickly because of the nature of the transfer portal in launching a program in a new place for a new coach?
Glenn, it's a great question, and again, here's an honest answer. I think you have to be really careful with the portal.
Okay.
I think it can definitely help you in a quick year, but if you're going to try to develop a culture and you're going to try to develop consistency where year in, year out, you're going to have teams that can compete for a high level. You have to do that by recruiting really high-level kids because you have to be able to we brought in 4 kids in the portal this year to help us get to the tournament that were tremendous. But I also had 9 kids in the program that had been with me for 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
So when they came into the program, the kids taught the culture, the kids taught the work ethic because they've been taught that by the seniors before them, by the seniors before them. So the transfer portal can definitely help you. It can definitely change the trajectory of your program very quick. But I don't think it's something and I've talked to a lot of guys that have used it, it's not something where, everyone's a little scared that, if you keep bringing guys from different places year in, year out, you're going to be inconsistent. And I know fan bases, more than anything, hate inconsistency. And I think, you still have to build your culture. You have to use the transfer portal strategically. Get the right kids in that you think that can help your roster. And also, you have to be very careful of the kids that you've had on your roster that have been with you 3, 4 years, sometimes 5 years. You have to be very careful that you are not bringing kids in that all of a sudden are going to get playing time against kids who have helped you win games, have helped you build a culture. So absolutely, the transfer portal can be a weapon, but I think you have to use it very, very strategically.
I appreciate that, too. And I'll wrap with this, Coach. We saw the lovely gift that the folks at Under Armour gave you, and you're an Under Armour guy. I'm sure you're going to love that a great deal. But if, say, there was a Maryland fan who wanted to give you a more practical welcome to town gift, something that maybe you were more likely to use just so we can get to know you a little bit better, what would be the type of thing that would be like the perfect Kevin Willard welcome to Maryland gift?
I know everyone's going to give me a nice bottle of red wine, and you'll be friends with me for the rest of life.
There you go.
I'm a simple guy, Glenn. I love to coach basketball. I love to go play around the golf with my alumni and my friends. And most of the time, I'm trying to be a dad and a husband. Give me a nice sit down and have a beer with me, and let's have some fun and bust each other's balls. And to me, that's all I need.
We'll look forward to doing that at some point. Coach Kevin Willard, really appreciate you taking the time. I know how insanely busy you are this week. Congratulations on the gig. Thank you for doing this, and look forward to doing it again here real soon, all right?
No, Glenn, thanks for having me, and great talking to you.